I get 2 activations per week. That's about 100 a year. I'm actually over that this year. I've got to cull a few clients. Over 18 years, that comes up to 1,800 different cases. And having a look at how organisations manage the recover over so many cases, from small to large, from simple to complex, some patterns start to emerge. For me, I can pick the outliers, those organisations that do extraordinarily well or behave so differently to the others that I can pick and start to identify some of the patterns that they're using to recover. And there are 3 main groups, 3 major styles of recovering or decision-making following a loss or a disaster. Each of those 3 styles I call their defensive styles. The organisation is in a defensive mode. They've suffered some kind of symbolic or physical threat and they're now trying to recover from it. Now, just for a moment, let me think about one of the earlier presenters who was talking about Australian satellite communication. It's easy for us to think, yes, we need to get the satellite communication back in. But the next level is, what do you say across that link? Who are you talking to? And what is your relationship with the person on the other side? And that's the area where it can come unstuck. And that's the area where you can't legislate, you can't plan for. You might be able to practice and see how it goes. Now, the difficulty that I come across, or a lot of the difficulties that I encounter, occur when there's communication between each of these 3 styles of dealing with the loss or the threat. I've given them names, and I can deal with the topic really at 2 levels. One is an intellectual level, where I can say, well, the top one responds in a hostile, avoidant manner, a bit like fight or flight, where the threat that's facing them, they'll become hostile towards or ignore certain aspects of it. And the communication within the company becomes very problematic. You might have 2 leaders come up without talking to each other to try and resolve it, and they're not talking to each other, avoiding difficult issues. The middle group, director-dependent group, is a group where you might have one person take charge of the situation and direct instructions downwards through the hierarchy and expect the lower ranks to respond. The problem with this organisation is often good ideas don't flow back up through the hierarchy. So while the directed structure there, if you like, responds very well in an emergency, it doesn't work so well in the recovery of an organisation afterwards. That's beyond that time horizon. So that's a directed or dependent. There's a relationship there between someone who is directing and those people who rely on the person who's directing them for their security and certainty. The last group there is a group that I call dialectic pairing. And that is where a dialogue is generated between 2 people. And it's witnessed by the other members of the decision-making group. And when they see the conversation and the argument, the 3rd person buys into the argument and gets a 3-dimensional understanding of what the presenting problems are. So when they go back to their department, they know how their department can fit in without being told, fit in well with what's the objectives of the other 2 or the other groups. In the dialectic pairing group, that kind of style outperforms the other 2 in the recovery phase significantly. I've just completed a case study for the Attorney General's Department where I can see where there was a change in management style and decision making added 25% to the bottom line of the company. That saved the company because the insurance response took 8 years to complete, and they were without $3.5, $4 million for 8 years. They had to manage without it. I've given each of these groups a token, a name, to try and identify some of the characteristics as a shortcut. Because the other way of addressing this is to tell a story.